Hey everybody, it's GombletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today I'm going to be playing another Chromatic Cube draft. We've got about 3 more days of these Chromatic Cube drafts, and then we have the Baldur's Gate draftable set coming out, and I will be part of the early access for event for that on Tuesday thanks to Wizards of the Coast, so very much looking forward to that, and we'll get some fresh Baldur's Gate drafts in. But until then, still a couple more days of Cube, so let's see if we can't do anything really fun and splashy in the kind of last-ditch effort for the cube here. Unfortunately, I don't think I opened up anything super powerful or splashy. There's a bunch of just like solid role fillers. Smoldering Egg, definitely good in the blue-red spells deck. Cyba Siphoner, very similar, good in any deck with a lot of instants and sorceries. Beast Whisperer could draw you a lot of cards in a creature deck, but it's a bit slow. Black Market Tycoon is one of the weaker mana dorks because it's hard to cast. Agonizing Remorse is decent interaction, exiling anything in your opponent's hand or grave. D-Spark's pretty solid interaction too in this cube. There's a lot of just big, powerful stuff. Finale of Glory is like the strongest card for just trying to end a game. I don't know here. I like Smoldering Egg, I think, the most here. Or just taking like a Triome. The pack is not massively powerful there, in my opinion. Here in pick 2, we do have some pretty strong stuff. One of the big ones is Crackle with Power. This is a pretty massive win condition for the spells decks, like blue-red spells. With any way that you can double this for free, like a Ralzeric or a Double Vision, anything like that. This card can really close out the game, and even without that, if you can just make it to where you have the 8 mana necessary to have this deal 10 damage, it can still definitely close out games. So I like Crackle with Power a lot here, and I'll probably just roll with that after first picking a Smoldering Egg. Seems like a pretty solid choice to me. Pack 3 now. I do love me a Hornet Queen. This card is a really big way to completely flip the board state. If your opponent's in the lead and they're really pressuring you, all of a sudden just having 5 Death Touchers on the board can just completely wall them off. And then if you have enough blockers, you get to start just attacking with a few of them each turn, start getting in some chip damage. So very, very good card. Baron's pretty solid, just a Mana War style card. 3 mana, bounce a creature when it comes into play. Depending on your end step, if you bounce one of your own cards, you get to draw a card. So that's pretty cool. Baron's pretty solid. History of Benalia is great for an aggressive deck. You're getting 2 2/2s and then buffing them. Farewell is great for any white deck, a huge wrath effect. Primal Amulet is interesting for the blue-red spells deck. It might be a bit slow, but it does eventually allow you to double your instants and sorceries. You need 4 charge counters on it, so you have to cast 4 instants and sorceries after playing it. I don't know if I like that. I'm just going to take Baron here. Much more consistent card that'll be good in pretty much anything. Cut to Ribbons is a pretty huge one. 2 mana for 4 damage to a creature is great, just efficient removal. And this does second as a win condition if you can get the double black required to cast Ribbons. Geist Flame Reservoir is theoretically for the instant sorcery deck, but it's just way too slow by cube standards to be any good, so I pretty much wouldn't play this in anything. Gin of Wishes is a fun card, but also kind of slow by cube standards. Still a 5 mana 4/4 flyer, so it's not the absolute worst like Geist Flame Reservoir is, but not a particularly high pick. I think I'm on Cut to Ribbons here. Other than that, strong cards in here, obviously Count Dracula, Sorin the Mirthless. Saval is really fun in the big explosive multicolor deck because you can really ramp out a ton of mana out of nowhere, but I think Cut to Ribbons is probably one of the best cards in that pack. Not too unhappy there. Well, now we have Murmuring Mystic for the blue-red spells deck. This is one of the weaker cards for it though, because it's really only for like a draft spells deck, not a constructed spells deck. Which is pretty slow. 4 mana 1/5, then you start getting 1/1s when you cast instants and sorceries. But I mean, it's that or like Tezzeret's Gambit, which doesn't do much. Combustible Gear Hulk might just be better though. 6 mana 6/6 first strike. Deals some damage to your opponent when it comes into play, or draws you some cards, whatever your opponent chooses. Don't love much else in this pack. Obviously Huntmaster, Tristani Discordant, and Cavalier of Dawn are all pretty powerful options in Selesnya, but we're kind of every other color but that. I guess I don't know, I feel like Murmuring Mystic should wheel, it's just not that strong. I'll go for the Gear Hulk. Now we have Kindred Denial and Supreme Will, two phenomenal counter spells. The Supreme Will is good for giving you options where you hold up the counter spell, and if you don't cast it, you get to just cast it as a draw spell instead, so you still use your mana that turn instead of doing nothing. And then Kindred Denial is powerful for being a 2-for-1, being a counter spell and drawing you a pretty powerful card by the time you're casting this, some kind of 5-6 mana card based on what you've countered. Alchemist Gambit's pretty fun though. Extra turn spell, if you make it to 7 mana, you can get an extra turn after this one. I've been trying to draft a lot of like low curve, more consistent decks lately. I kind of want to just throw everything out in the water for these last few drafts and do whatever I want. I'm just going to take the big 7 mana, take an extra turn spell and see how that goes. Pick 7 Ravenous Chupacabra. Maybe I've changed my mind because Ravenous Chupacabra is just great. Such a good card. 4 mana for a 2/2 and you destroy anything when it enters the battlefield. Really good in this cube where you have clone effects, you have bounce effects like Baron, you have flicker effects, all kinds of ways you could abuse this, and even if you don't abuse it, it's just a good deal. I mean, there's nothing like super big and splashy that I really want to build around here anyway, so just take the Chupacabra. Now, not a ton of stuff here. A couple solid green cards. Inscription is particularly good for green because they don't get a lot of removal, and this piece is pretty good. And then Rada and Llanowar Visionary are just the kind of stuff green does get a lot of, but they're both still solid. I think I'm just going to take Shatter Skull Smashing to replace a land slot, and then if we top deck that land late game, we get to cast a big removal spell off the Shatter Skull Smashing. Pretty easy blue-red land here, although we could take the black-red one instead since we are theoretically trying to splash in Ravenous Chupacabra and maybe a Cut to Ribbons here. We're actually just as close to being red-black as we are blue-red, however, all of our red spells work better for a blue-red deck than a black-red deck, especially Alchemist Gambit. I guess Smoldering Egg, Cut to Ribbons wouldn't be that bad in black-red. I'll start with the Summit. I like Chupacabra a little more than Baron, I think. So maybe I am leaning slightly more to black-red. Now we can take this Temple of Malice. I don't like Electro Dominance too much. It's a lot of mana for that Fireball kind of effect. Like you're spending 8 mana, getting like 6 damage. You do get to cast something else for free, but I don't know. With Crackle with Power, you're spending 8 mana, you're getting 10 damage to 2 things. Alright, Erebos for a red-black deck would be a thing. Good for a sacrifice deck. As your creatures are dying, you get to draw cards. You can even use this as the sack outlet to sacrifice those creatures. There's also History of Benalia if I just want to get aggro. Not a lot of very aggro cards in this drafted pool so far, though. Chainer does not seem very good. 4 mana for a 3/2, then you discard a card to play a creature from your grave. If you do, it gets haste. I don't know, it's interesting, and I don't think Gem of Wishes is very good. Well, we do get God Eternal Bonsu. We also get Murmuring Mystic, but it's looking like we get to push into red-black here, being a little more open. Yeah, Ob Nixilis real late here. And a last pick, Olivia Crimson Bride. Alright, happy to push into Rakdos then. Just kind of Rakdos good stuff. We're definitely not playing Alchemist Gambit without blue mana. So let's see. What do we have now? In our pack 2, pick 1. I like Pass the Torch. 2 mana at instant speed for 2 damage to any target isn't the worst deal ever. And then you get to... Basically, you pass the torch to a creature in your hand, and then if that creature hits your opponent, then that creature will cast Pass the Torch again, which will pass the torch to another creature in your hand. So if you can get whatever creature in your hand to hit somebody, you can just keep the chain going, which is pretty fun. Pretty fun, pretty cool card. Bank Job is also solid. Beginning of your upkeep, exile the bottom creature of your library. You can cast it this turn. Beginning of the end step, if it's still exiled, you get mana ramp out of it at least. Do need to be a pretty creature-heavy deck card. You do need to be a pretty creature-heavy deck for that card to work, though. Otherwise, you're going to run out pretty quickly, especially if you're like hitting 7 drops off it. It's pretty painful. I think I'm going to try out Pass the Torch. That card just always looks really fun to me. I don't think it's going to play as as well as I have it in my head, but I guess we'll see. Siege Gang Lieutenant is a pretty great Rakdos sacrifice card. 4 mana for 3 1/1 goblins, and you can sacrifice those 1/1 goblins to drain your opponent for a life. So it's really good if you get to Meathook Massacre Blood Artist type effect on the board where you're triggering some life loss every time you're losing creatures. Kite Sail Freebooter is going to be one of our first cheap cards here. Zerzoth makes a lot of sense in a Rakdos sack deck though, because it's potentially giving us these 1/1 devils that deal damage to any target when they die. I think it's definitely one of the cheaper cards because look, we have a lot cheap stuff going on here. Junji doesn't do too much with our deck strategy. It's just a big, powerful dragon. Zerzoth and Freebooter both seem pretty cool. I haven't tried Zerzoth yet. Let's play around with Zerzoth here. Now we've got Atsushi and Finale of Eternity. Both of these are pretty good. Finale of Eternity is a lot of mana, but if you cast it and you do get to destroy 3 creatures with it, 3 for 1 is a pretty good deal. Buy 1, get 2 free. Yeah, 6 mana, destroy 3 creatures with toughness 4 or less. That does get really expensive real quick, but does blow up a lot of stuff potentially. I don't know. I'm going to take Atsushi. Better deal for the immediate payment. I like Dreadhorde Invasion for a sacrifice deck, but we don't have any sacrifice outlets except for Erebos right now, and that we have to pay mana for. So we don't have any great sacrifice outlets to work with Dreadhorde Invasion right now. Sedgemoor Witch and Midnight Reaper are both also good for this kind of deck. And then Goldspan Dragon is just nuts in anything because it's Goldspan Dragon. 5 mana 4/4 flying haste that spits out treasure tokens that produce 2 mana of any color as long as you control the dragon. Yeah, I'm just going to take Goldspan Dragon. It's just general good stuff. And then we should wheel one of these 3, Dreadhorde Invasion, Sedgemoor Witch, or Midnight Reaper. And any of those will be quite solid for us. Ooh, Terror of the Peaks. Just give me more just straight up good basic red stuff. 5 mana 5/4 flyer. Your opponent has to pay 3 life to target this and remove it. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, the Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So you can really, really pressure your opponent's life total quite quickly with that card. Now we have Play with Fire, nice little cheap shock. 2 to any target for 1 red. Like Magda a lot in here. Get us those treasure tokens every time we tap that down. Seems pretty good. We don't have a ton of straight up removal like Mythos of Nethroi would be. But we've got Ravenous Chupacabra, and then we have a little bit of burn spells, Play with Fire, Pass the Torch, that kind of stuff. Don't think I'm hurting too much on that front, where I am kind of hurting on like mana ramp. There's not a lot of mana ramp in red-black, so I think Magda should fit pretty well into here. Plus we have multiple dragons, so it's possible we end up with 5 treasures in 1 game and then get to get a free dragon. That should be pretty great. Yeah, and Bank Job gets treasures too. And maybe this is Bank Job's time to shine. Play around with it here. Shadow Spear is really good though. Trample Lifelink, that's pretty nuts. I'm going to take Shadow Spear. Now, that's red-blue. Pretty much nothing here. We'll throw a Delina in here. When we have some creatures that are pretty good to copy off of Delina, if we copy a Ravenous Chupacabra, that's nuts. If we copy a Sling Gang Lieutenant, that's also nuts, because we copy the Chupacabra, we destroy a creature, we copy the Lieutenant, we have 2 1/1s that will stay on the board, even though Delina exiles the main creature. Now we have Eater of Virtue, I guess. This is kind of like a Rakdos big stuff kind of deck this time around. The Rakdos aggro deck didn't work too well for us. Maybe Rakdos big stuff will. Some big dragons, big crackle with power to close out the game. Some treasure production is nice. Magda. Goldspan Dragon. We'll just take a Lorehold command. Seems like the best card there, even though they're all off color. We wield none of the black cards. Alright, well, black is pretty heavily drafted. I guess we take Toralf's Disciple then, start throwing some lightning bolts in our deck. Nice little aggro card. That's not a great sign. Felt like the pivot to black was very correct in the first pack, but in the second pack it was just like, no, the black is all gone now. So, interesting. We're not that far off from trying to do the mono red thing. If you've seen any of my previous cube drafts, like in the Tinkerer's cubes before, in the just regular arena cubes, you'll know I love to draft mono red. So maybe if we're going to get this cut off of black, it's possible we just take nothing but red cards this pack and find a mono red deck. Be pretty cool. I'm going to go for the Professional Facebreaker here. It's going to synergize well with our other treasure cards like Goldspan Dragon and Magda, as well as being a potential card draw engine all by itself, which is pretty good. Now I've got Electrostatic Blast, looking pretty great. Yawgmoth being the best sack outlet though for a Rakdos sacrifice deck, because you can sacrifice things without paying mana and you're drawing a card when you do it, which is just nuts. So while I am maybe trying to do mono red, I don't think I can pass up Yawgmoth, because if last pack was anything to go by, Yawgmoth is not going to wheel at all. So we'll take Yawgmoth here for if the red deck doesn't make it, then we do have the very solid Rakdos sacrifice outlet. Looks like the red deck is not going to make it, because I don't think Ephraim Flame Painter is any good. It's one of these cards where you're always expecting the best case scenario with it, and that is a very, very rare occurrence, where it's a 4-mana 1/4, no evasion of any kind, so you need to have the board completely clear for this to do something. Otherwise, they can just block with like a 3/3, and then you're not doing anything all game. You've just spent 4 mana for a pretty below rate card. I'm going to take Embersturm Predator. Now, take Big Score, Soul Servitude, or Nightmare Shepherd. Nightmare Shepherd's pretty nuts for the sacrifice deck, because then you're sacrificing your Ravenous Chupacabra and getting its enter the battlefield again. Just getting a 1/1 version of it. Yeah, that's nuts. Let's take a Nightmare Shepherd. This is going to be pretty crazy here. Nothing but 4 mana cards. Pretty used to that in this cube, though. Don't think we're really going to play the Eater Virtue, but we'll probably play Shadow Spear. Might not play the Smoldering Egg. We have 6 instants and sorceries total. Seems a bit low for that, but now we're scooping up a Royal Eruption. Pretty happy with that. 2 mana, 3 damage. Just efficient burn. Really not the biggest fan of Olivia Crimson Bride. Although I guess something will definitely have died by the time we cast her, so we don't really need to be a self-mill deck trying to get some big reanimation or anything. We just do this and then bring back some Yawgmoth or something they already blew up on us. Oh, there's Blood Artist. Oh, thank goodness. We found Blood Artist. It is in a pack with Siege Gang Commander, which is moderately sad, but Blood Artist is absolutely sick in most decks, but especially in sacrifice decks. Draining your opponent for 1 of their life every time a creature dies on any side of the board. Wow, and now we have Young Pyromancer and Robber of the Rich. I don't think we have enough instants and sorceries for Young Pyro to be super good, even though we are the sack deck where we can really make use of those 1/1 elementals. I think Robber of the Rich is just better, just such a good aggressive card. If your opponent has more cards in hand than you get to start casting cards out of their deck, which is absurd. Burn Down the House is also great. This is just an excellent pack. Burn Down the House being 5 mana for 5 damage to all creatures and planeswalkers. Drakus, that's 1,000,000 mana, but we could put it in the deck just as a Magda synergy. Trying to get the 5 treasures to pull out a Jakuzeth from the library into play. But Callous Blood Mage is perfectly fine for a sacrifice deck. 3 mana for 2/1 and a 1/1 pest, or 3 mana for 2/1 draw a card when we play it. Perfectly solid. More consistent. Cavalier Flame a little hard to cast, being triple red, but it is kind of high impact. I think I'd rather just take Takenuma, because that's just 100% getting played. It is strictly infinitely better than a Swamp. And better than a card that we've got like a 50% chance of cutting, because Takenuma has a 0% chance of cutting, because it's just taking up a land slot. So Electrostatic Blast for another cheap burn spell, or Tenacious Underdog here, because Tenacious Underdog works quite well with sacrifice kind of stuff. I might take the Underdog here. I feel like I have a lot of cheap burn right now. I have Play with Fire, Pass the Torch, Royal Eruption, Lightning Bolts off of Toralf's Disciple. I guess that's not a lot, but it's an okay amount. Awaken the Blood Avatar. 8 mana, sack any number of creatures that cost 2 less for each creature sacked. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. You get a 3/6 red avatar whenever it attacks, deals 3 to each opponent. Weird. Probably won't play it, but I guess it's on color. Play Hordeling Outburst. 3 1/1s for 3 mana. We can play Magmatic Channeler. Discard a card, cast a card off the top 2 this turn. It's kind of worse than just like tap to draw a card, discard a card, but red doesn't really get access to that kind of card looting. They just get the weaker filtering, the rummaging. So we're going to be cutting 10 cards here. We currently have 24 creatures and 9 non-creatures. That is a lot of creatures. When we look at our non-creatures, we have a Planeswalker, an Artifact, and the rest is instants and sorceries. I still feel like it's not a ton of instants and sorceries for the Smoldering Egg plan, so I will probably cut that. But as for the rest of the 2 mana cards, I kind of like keeping in all 5, because we actually do look like we have a solid aggressive curve otherwise. And Blood Mage, Facebreaker, Toralf's Disciple, Zurzoth. I said I wasn't going to do it, but I'm actually going to go for a somewhat aggressive Rakdos deck here. It is mid-rangey by Rakdos standards, but still, we can get a pretty aggro curve going. Not the most aggro in the world. Okay, so we need to cut 10 cards. I gotta find stuff that just doesn't synergize. Chainer doesn't make a ton of sense. We have cards that do synergize that just don't seem that powerful, like God Eternal Bontu, sack any number of permanents, draw them many cards. 5/6 Menace. But I guess by the time we're casting this, we could just sacrifice some lands or something. Because we don't have a ton of great sacrifice fodder. We just have a ton of really good triggers that'll happen when we're sacrificing creatures. I think we have enough that I get to cut Erebos. Erebos hasn't really impressed me as a sacrifice outlet or sacrifice engine or a card draw engine or any of that. Yeah, Erebos just isn't great unless you're consistently having Erebos as a creature, because if not, I mean, a 4-mana enchantment that does these things is pretty weak. And I feel like we have enough other ways to make good use of our sacrifice triggers. Like we have Blood Artist, Yawgmoth, Nightmare Shepherd doing some good sacrifice things. Still 7 cards to cut. Delina is so fun with Enter the Battlefield effects. We don't actually have a ton of them. We have a couple that are really good. Delina on a Ravenous Chupacabra or Sling Gang Lieutenant is like great, but then we have like Nightmare Shepherd, Yawgmoth, Atsushi, Emerged from Predator, a bunch of cards that don't actually do anything when we copy them. It's not that exciting for the 4-mana 3/2. Combustible Gearhulk does seem like a lot of mana here. We could cut a Gearhulk. Top our curve off at 6. Treat Crackle's power is like just Lava Axe. 5 mana for 5 damage to any target. We still need 5 more cards to cut. Average 3.1 mana right now. Decisions are so hard. I kind of want to cut a Whirling Outburst. Might even want to cut past the Torch. Then 3 more creatures. Maybe even cut Crackle with Power in this deck. I'm just going to go against all of my initial thoughts. With the way that this deck is panning out, it looks like it can do a lot of work aggressive curve-wise, where we can just cut the big Crackle with Power, cut a land here. Cut 2 4-drops. Yeah. I'm gonna be playing the red-black aggro deck that I went, 2 and 3 with? The first time I tried to do it in my second draft, but this time around it looks like a much stronger build. So we'll find out. Really don't think we cut any of our 2s or 3s. Just gotta cut 2 cards out of these 3. Mana costs. Shadow Spear might be a bit slow, having to spend extra mana to slap this onto things, but it is strong. But that's a potential cut. I guess Sushi isn't like a synergy card, it's just a big scary beat stick. It's a potential cut. Chupacabra is just nuts. I'm just not going to drop a Chupacabra. Maybe we drop Sisters of the Undead as well. Drop the Olivia. Really go low curve. Immersed Predator might be a bit slow by cube standards. It's definitely like super sick in call time, but when you think about it, the first time you attack with it, you're attacking with a 4/4. Sure, you can make it hard to kill, but there's a lot of exile removal, there's a lot of bounce. That actually might just be worse than Atsushi. Guess there's also... God, it does seem slow. God Eternal Bantu still. Maybe Immersed Predator's worse than Atsushi. Maybe I don't have to be so... In this cube, I probably shouldn't be so married to my curve. Even in more aggressive decks, I should consider smaller cards. Magnus, low toughness, pretty easy to die, but I feel like the treasure tokens are going to put in a lot of work. Magmatic Channeler is probably pretty bad in here. We don't have the instants and sorceries to ever make this a 4/4, and as I said before, the discard to be able to play one of the top 2 cards till end of turn, it's kind of just like a worse Merfolk Looter, like worse than just tap, draw a card, discard a card. Because sure, you get to choose out of 2 cards, but you have to play them that turn. It's probably not great. If I'm not as tied to my curve, was there anything else in the side that's any good? Don't think so. These all look pretty bad. Maybe Gear Hulk or something. Yeah, maybe get that Gear Hulk as an option to maybe pile. About Erebos? Probably not. I just don't think Erebos is ever going to be a creature. And it's just a very slow enchantment if it's not. Okay, so don't love Shadow Spirit here because I don't love having to move that around with that equip cost. It's kind of like makes our curve worse because we want to just be jamming creatures out and attacking. Don't love Channeler, it's kind of just like worse card draw than normal. God Eternal Bantu was looking pretty slow. And then Atsushi or Immersed Predator, we were going to cut maybe one of these for the stronger one. I feel like Atsushi is the stronger one. Let's cut the slow cards here. then if we cut a land here, what is our curve like? I don't think we can cut a land here. Average 3.3. Maybe we could just do a 41 card special though. Call it a day. Was there anything else in the sideboard? I wasn't looking at my non-creature cards. There was definitely that Crackle with Power we could consider. But I think I'm cool without it. Yeah, I think this is going to be the deck. And actually, we do have the Shatter Skull Smashing as our 17th land, so we get to cut a land and still be playing pretty much a 17-lander. But we do have a Mountain of 4-drops, so I'm actually okay. Maybe running it as an 18-land deck. Probably not, though. Yeah, we'll just cut a land here. And then what is our color distribution? 17 red, 11 black. Currently we have 7, 8, 9, 10 red sources, and then 7, 8, 9 black sources. Pretty good to me. Yeah, because we have a lot of double black cards, these here. And then our double red cards aren't till turn 4, so that should be pretty good. Pretty good mana split there. Alright, here we are with the final deck. It's going to be another Rakdos aggro deck, because I didn't learn my lesson the first time around. We've got some pretty great stuff to drop on turn 2, Robber of the Rich and Tenacious Underdog being the most aggressive. Magda also being quite great, though, giving us treasure tokens to ramp into our bigger cards early. And then we've just got a solid curve of just big beatstick creatures like Atsushi, Immersturm Predator, the big dragons, Goldspan Dragon, Terror the Peaks, a bunch of big scary stuff. Obnixilis, of course, puts a lot of pressure on your opponent, and we've got a solid amount of little burn spells as removal. Play with Fire, Pass the Torch, Royal Eruption, Cut to Ribbons, and we even have Ravenous Chupacabra as our removal spell to kill any creature that's in the way. So hopefully this aggro deck can curve out a little better, get a little more quick victories than the first time we tried this thing. So I guess we'll find out soon enough as we head into game 1. Game 1 here, unfortunately, going to start with a mulligan, triple black lands, and 4 red cards. Mulligan to a considerably better hand. It's not a great hand, though. I think I'm actually going to get rid of the Chupacabra here. I really like having a dragon as a big top-end card to try to close out the game. We do have Cut to Ribbons being solid removal. Don't know if we need the Chupacabra style removal. Turn 1 from our opponent. They got those fancy lightning bolt sleeves. See if it's a aggro mirror match here. No, turn 1 Llanowar Elves it is. Well, we're gonna bolt the bird. Keep them off of their 3 mana play on turn 2. Make sure they don't get ahead of us. Did not want to have to use that removal so quickly, but it is generally pretty good to blow up their turn 1 mana accelerants. And now they don't have a turn 2 play where they might have had an Uro or something very deadly for us. And you just get to jam a bunch of copies of Lightning Bolt into our deck. There they go. 36 cards left in the deck now. And there is the Uro. Yeah, I'm super happy we blew up that Llanowar Elves. They would have been turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 Uro. Just a million mana on turn 3. Ooh, there's Obnixilis. I could sacrifice Torolf's Disciple. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but it very well could be. Just have double Obnix. Whatever, probably the wrong thing to do, but I like having 2 Omnixilis out. Pretty sick.
If you don't stand with me,
We will make a devil with the token copy, and then we will drain them for 2 life and make them discard a card.
you're punished.
Or drain them for 2 life or make them discard a card. Oracle Moldiah is the play, so they are really ramping up still. 2 lands this turn. They've got a Suspicious Stowaway on top. We draw into a Lightning Bolt. That's pretty great. Just start jamming these Omnixilis triggers together. Really put that life total pressure down.
Carnage. Tribute is owed.
I forgot to play a land last turn, but luckily it didn't matter because we didn't draw another one. But that was awkward. Just gonna hold up a Sublime Epiphany here. Well, that's cool with me. I can just double uptick Omnixilis and pass the turn.
Pleasure doing business with you. Go ahead. Plead for mercy.
How bad is it if they counter Immerstrom Predator? Counter it, bounce my Omnixilis token. They draw a card. I mean, really, if I don't cast Immerstrom Predator and they have Sublime Epiphany, they can also just still bounce the Omnixilis, draw a card, and the end step anyway, so I might as well. Like, it's gonna be the same end result here. That's the problem, is there's no real playing around Sublime Epiphany, because if they have it, they don't have to counter something with it. They can still just kill my Omnixilis token and draw the card. Yeah. Like, I knew exactly what they had, and it just doesn't matter. You can't play around that card, really. They're still gonna blow up my token, Omnixilis. Draw. Alrund's Epiphany. Wasn't foretold, though, so they don't get the 1/1. Which is definitely good for us. I'm gonna pass the turn. A Lightning Bolt off the top. Always happy to see a Lightning Bolt.
By coin or carnage. Tribute is...
They drew into like Torrential Gearhulk here. They've just got us. Yeah, I think we go for that attack because most flash creatures are going to put them in a really great position either way. And now Omnixilis is at 7, so we can make them draw 7 and lose. But now they have a 5/5 shark, so they can hit Omnixilis, and we can't make them lose 7 life. Well, we do get to bolt their face, and then if we draw a swamp, we can ribbons them to death. Or if we draw any land, we can Goldspan Dragon. I think we can win through an Uro. But we need the land right now, or Uro is going to gain enough life to really get them back in the game. I guess we can't quite win through an Uro. We need them to be at 4 life. Yeah, that is awkward. Actually, if they don't have a counterspell here, they block the 1/1 and the 1/1 deals the damage to them when it dies. And we do still win through an Uro. God. That is really frustrating. Now they kill Omnixilis, attack with Uro, gain 3 life, draw a card.
Next time, I'll...
The fact that it's gain 3 life and draw a card every turn. We still don't have our 6th mana for Sisters of the Undead. Get ribbons for 3. A royal eruption for 3. Wow. This is rough. Okay, I'm gone. Hullbreaker Horror it is. When they play any instant, they bounce any of our spells. They're going up to 11 this turn. That was brutal. Just missed too many land drops. Maybe I should be running 18 in here. Because I don't know. Like, if we hit our land drops earlier that game, like if we just gold span dragon 1 turn sooner, like we win that game. I don't know, the other way to think about it is like 1 land drop isn't gonna change things a massive amount. Like, that is kind of results oriented thinking. Like, if I cut a card for another land in this deck, it would probably be maybe like Combustible Gearhulk or something, and we didn't even draw Combustible Gearhulk that game anyway, so we wouldn't have drawn the land regardless. Alright, here we are in game 2 now. We have turn 2 Tenacious Underdog. We do have a 6-drop in hand, so I'm probably just going to turn 1 play this Shatter Skull Smashing. Tapped. And Temple of Epiphany is the play from our opponent. They scry 1. Ooh, Tenacious Underdog into Toralf's Disciple is quite the start. It's going to be beating down really quickly. The Reality Chip is a 0-4 blocker, though. That's definitely a wall. We'll still hit for 3 here. Start chalking our deck full of lightning bolts. I guess that was the problem last game. We drew a lightning bolt. We kind of messed up our land count by throwing in extra lightning bolts into the deck with the Disciple. Turn 5 Goldspan Dragon seems pretty good. Blue, red, white. They can definitely make use of their grave, but just a Royal Eruption grave, I think I'd rather just draw a card here. I'm going to do this pre-combat in case I get like a lightning bolt. I guess I could just use that post-combat anyway. We get to pass the torch. Yeah, but this way I don't have to attack because I know it's not going to do anything. Although I could threaten to have a lightning bolt there. I guess there's no reason not to. By attacking in, they might think that I have a lightning bolt because I did just attack with Toralf's Disciple. So they might be scared to block, lose their Reality Chip. Alright, here we go. Goldspan Dragon. Now we have passed the torch up. So we just send in the squad. Alright, trade there. That's all cool with me. Hit them down to 13. We'll pass the torch, kill this Reality Chip here. Put the torch onto the Sisters of the Undead. Not only are they terrifying vampire ladies, but they also have the torch. Murmuring Mystics to play from our opponent. They should be pretty dead to Sisters of the Undead here. Yep, they're gonna scoop them up. 1-1, a very quick game 2 there. Very good stuff from the aggressive deck. Alright, we're going first again. I love to see it. No play till turn 3 here, which is not ideal, but the hand is still definitely pretty powerful. Our opponent has Giganta the Wellspring as their companion, and Jetmir's Garden as the first play. Probably a pretty multicolored deck over there. I guess I can wait to play Takenuma till turn 3, but it's probably going to have to get cast here. Or get played here, rather than channeled. Treasure map from our opponents. Let's pass the torch on to our Facebreaker, I guess. But I guess now they have a Very, very clear target for removal. Blow up the Facebreaker before it hits you. Fingers crossed they don't have the cheap removal to blow up the Facebreaker here. Have to be a white exile removal spell. Probably. I guess it could be like Lightning Helix is 3 damage. Alright, well, we did draw Black Source as well here, so we might not have to play Takenuma. Alright, Facebreaker, do you get in? Do we get to pass the torch again? That would be awesome. We sure do. Alright, I'm super happy with that. Opponent's going to scry one with their treasure map. We'll pass the torch again, pass it on to the Goldspan Dragon. I kind of want to cast Goldspan Dragon here. Though, and then it's open for removal for a turn. I'm going to put it on the Sisters of the Undead, weirdly enough. And I have played my land for turn, right? Yes. Okay, so we have to use this treasure for Goldspan. Or we could crack it to the Facebreaker and see what we draw if we hit something that costs 4 or less, which is what amount of our deck. There are only 2 cards in our whole deck that wouldn't work. I guess every land we hit would do nothing also. I mean, if I Goldspan, I can just Goldspan next turn and still attack with it, because if I Goldspan now, I'm not casting Sisters of the Undead next turn anyway. Yeah, probably just Obnix. And then Goldspan next turn, or Sisters.
I like that. Go ahead. Plead for mercy.
Okay. Pass turn. I guess actually, I can play both next turn if they don't do anything here. Yeah, Professional Facebreaker has Menace, so we get to play a land, play Goldspan, hit them with Facebreaker and Goldspan's attack trigger. We'll have 3 treasures. With 3 treasures, we could play a 6-drop. That being said, Sisters of the Undead wouldn't be getting its attack trigger, but still. We've got a cut here. Okay, we're definitely playing Goldspan. I don't think I'm going to cast Sisters here. I think I'm going to save the treasures. So if they just blow up Goldspan Dragon, I still have a ton of cards to use for card draw next turn. Plus I can just cast Sisters of the Undead next turns because they're haste. They can fight a little bit with this Blue Kronos. They can do it 1 time, I think. Fight our Goldspan Dragon off the board. And that is the play. Then we Sisters of the Undead, bring it right back. They need to have really good interaction for only 2 mana here to stay in this one. Make it less likely by making them discard one of those cards, or go down to 4 life.
And you'll lose everything.
Alright, here's Sisters of the Undead. This is probably lethal. Use the treasure map here. Does not have enough counters to give them 3 treasures right now, so now it would have to be 1 mana interaction. But that is going to be game 2 and 1. Actually getting some really good work done with this Rakdos aggro deck. This is the redemption run, hopefully. Here we are now, game 4. Let's start off with Zurzoth here, get to that Sisters of the Undead, who has been putting in work. Sure. Pretty big, just like game ender at the top end of the curve. Is just like, alright, well, I guess it's over. Sisters of the Undead, or Olivia Crimson Bride. I think I've highly underestimated them in the past. Actually have been explosive. And I'll play an Obnixless after I get a Devil token off of Zurzoth. Ooh, but we got a Professional Facebreaker to drop too. How does Zerzoth work? Whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, you create a 1/1 devil. Whenever my devils attack, we both draw a card and discard a card at random. So only if they draw cards during my turn do I get devils. I don't actually love that. I might just play Professional Facebreaker and try to play a turn 4 Terror of the Peaks. I wish this was whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their draw step, create a 1/1, because then I would slam that down against the Suspicious Stowaway, but that's not how it is. I think Zerzoth would actually be a good card if that's how it read, but Zerzoth's just a fun card instead. Alright, opponent is going to let their Seafaring Werewolf flip, which is terrifying. Try to hit with Professional Facebreaker here, and hopefully it happens. They are Grixis, so don't know the odds of that. Works out so far. Fingers crossed, no counter spell. They could have the God Pharaoh counterspell, they could have Hornswoggle, or Whirlwind Denial. There's 3 counterspells in the whole cube I can think of they can have here. They had an incentive to play nothing last turn, so this isn't like a guarantee that they have a counter here. I think we can take these odds. Just go for it. It's definitely distinctly possible we just get countered here, but it's also distinctly possible we don't, and we didn't. Alright, Seafaring Werewolf's definitely putting in work. Draw some extra cards now, without having to discard. Inscription of Insight, but our cards back to our hand lose a few life because they targeted our Terror of the Peaks. We don't have the mana to play 2 cards per turn here again, so Seafaring Werewolf gets to just keep demolishing us. Can I draw a land or one of my 2-drops? That would be great. I would like to flip this werewolf. Let's bounce to hand again. They're down to 12. Cast a Key to the Archive for free. That is not good. Not good at all. I think my opponents are 3 for 3 on getting Time Warp with Key to the Archive against me in this cube so far. Anointed Procession would be pretty horrific as well. Or not Anointed Procession, Approach of the Second Sun. You gain 7 life, then you put it in your library 7th from the top, and when you cast it again, you win. Pretty good when you have a way to draw an extra card each turn. Dig to it there. Or they just get electrolyzed and have to discard it? I don't know. Well, still can't double spell, but they double spelled, so we're good. Yeah, here's Terror of the Peaks. I guess if they keep bouncing it to our hand, they'll keep taking 3 damage. So, I mean, that's just the course of events this game. Just how things are going. We've somehow dealt more damage to them just because they keep targeting Terror of the Peaks to keep it off their face. Midnight Clock. 5 mana up from them. We might do something with Terror of the Peaks here. Drop Professional Facebreaker, I think, so that I can get the treasure token when I attack with Terror of the Peaks, if it remains. They have 5 mana here. Oh no, Key to the Archive adds 2. That is a really good card. Sick. I love Sublime Epiphany. They're going to copy their Stowaway. Well, let's blow that up so they don't have 2 Stowaways. And then I want to pass the torch to something with haste, so we'll just put it on Sisters of the Undead, I guess. Alright. Not the end of the world. They are at 9, we're at 14. We actually have more cards than they do. As well. Smoldering Egg is terrifying, though. It's going to be just all counter spells here. Kind of like Callous Blood Mage to try to draw a card, because then if we hit a good one, we can drop an Obnixless or Zurzoth, but maybe I'm supposed to just drop Terror of the Peaks again. This is a little greedy, but so is Terror of the Peaks. So I could just have another counter spell. Yeah. I mean, show me the counterspell, I guess. You've already went through 2 of them. What are the odds you got a 3rd here? Ah, okay, we lose. Torrential Gearhulk Sublime Epiphany is pretty much the strongest thing you can do in Cube. It has been destroying souls ever since they added an Arena Cube. It is absolutely disgusting. You counterspell, draw a card, create a copy of your Gearhulk. The copy of the Gearhulk gets to cast another spell for free, like Electrolyze Us for 2 and draw a card. And then you just get to attack for 10 after this, and we lose. We don't immediately lose unless they have like Lightning Bolt or something, but basically lose. Because we can't kill them out of nowhere here. We do lose. That is 2 haste damage, and a Time Warp was their card off the Mystical Archives. 4 for 4. I guess that was their... Wait, no. They only cast Key to the Archive once. It's in their hand right now. They didn't cast it the second time, so yeah, that's what they got the first time. Unless Time Warp is just in this cube, there's no way. Yeah, Time Warp is not in the cube. It's from the Mystical Archives. I keep getting Time Warped. It doesn't matter there, we're already dead. Torrential Gearhulk Sublime Epiphany is pretty unstoppable. Don't have to feel too bad about losing that one. Did what we could. Alright, here we are in Game 5, 2-2. See what we can do this time around. Ooh, Blood Artist. Give us a turn to play. Maybe it would have been better to just pass the torch their face. Throw it on a Toralf's Disciple. Blue-red here, so they definitely have like Lightning Bolt kind of cards in their deck, so they might just blow up our Disciple anyway, and then we don't get any pass the torch value. Alright, no 3 damage burn here. So they are down to 17, and they're going to cycle their Magma Opus to get a treasure token. Go for a Hortling Outburst. And drop a Yawgmoth here, or at Sushi. We'll do that if we don't have to pass the torch. If they triple block, we'll just pass the torch. Okay, single block. So fine by me. We still get a Life Drain out of Blood Artist. Get one of those things out of the way. And I think I like Atsushi first, and then Yawgmoth next turn. Kamigawa songs get very excited here. Pumping me up, let's go. Temple of the Dragon Queen on red, untapped because they have a Goldspan Dragon in hand. And Goldspan Dragon probably the play. There it is. Are they going to send it in or hold for blocks? Hold it for blocks. I like Yawgmoth pre-combat so I can win the fight in the sky. And then just attack both here. Wish I could win the fight anywhere with Yawgmoth. Sack a Blood Artist to kill Goldspan Dragon. Okay, that is all they're gonna do. Just take 4. Cool with me. 5 because of Blood Artist. Yeah, Blood Artist is so nice. Just even when your opponent chump blocks, they just have to take that extra damage. Alright, they're gonna get their Goldspan Treasure. It's gonna be 2 mana off of it, which means that really does enable some big stuff here. 7 mana up. Just gonna pass turn. I'm gonna get Sublime Epiphanied again. I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm getting a little tired of the Epiphany. We can Zerzoth and still have the Pass the Torch mana, but then we're not passing the torch to anything. So if I cast Pass the Torch right now, that might be better. Go for Zerzoth and see if it's Sublime Epiphany again. Spell Swindle it is. That gives them a bunch of treasure. Okay. Do I want to sacrifice something for Yawgmoth here? They have 1 blocker. If we get it out of the way with Blood Artist, we drain them for 2 life. They go to 9. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have lethal on board, but they're going to have a bunch of treasures, so they can cast whatever in hand. There's definitely a risk to this. I think I'm gonna hope. Here. Oh, I guess that resolves after, so it's not quite lethal on board, but with Pass the Torch, it's lethal. Come on. Make them have it. We need 4 mana interaction at instant speed. Or they go to 1 life. Go to 1, now it has to be literally just a counter spell. Pass the torch onto our Magna. Alright, they're going to discard a card, draw 2, search for a... Oh wait, no, they have a bunch of mana. I forgot about Goldspan Dragon doubles the treasures from Spell Swindle too. Alright, so they were digging for a counterspell there, but did not find it. So that is going to be 3 and 2. If that were Sublime Epiphany, they probably would have won. I would have gotten Sublime Epiphanied again. Spell Swindle was still pretty good though. That's pretty spicy with Goldspan Dragon. It's a ton of mana. Round 6 with the Rakdos deck. No matter what happens, this one did better than the last one, so I'll take it. And we've got a turn 2 Robber of the Rich here. That is always a spicy start, because we're on the play, so just by default we'll have less cards in hand than our opponent, because we're playing our stuff first, so this Robber can really fuel our hand if we're lucky and we hit some good cards off our opponent. That is just a land for now. Nothing cool yet. We're looking for just any kind of permanence, really, because currently our hand is just a bunch of interaction. Looking for stuff to put on the board and start getting in the lead there. And never mind, I'm going to kill that so hard. Menagerie Curator is an incredible card. Ramping you up a mana of any color, plus drawing you a card when you cast creatures that you don't have duplicates of in your deck. Well, I guess I could have... I did hit a Fire Prophecy, so I could have Fire Prophecy there on Menagerie Curator, but I didn't know it was on top of their library, so I would rather get in for that guaranteed 2 damage than just bounce off the 1/3 and hope to draw removal from them. Alright, what do we hit now? Fire Prophecy and Hullbreaker Horror if we get 1,000,000 mana. That's a big option. Yawgmoth, is that stronger than Zerzoth here? I think it is. Not by a lot. Because we don't really have the creatures to sacrifice right now. But it's going to work really well if we draw into things to synergize with it. Alright, Cabaret Rebels gets a 1-drop from Lotus Cobra, and it's going to be Gilded Goose. This card really quickly just blows your board state out of proportion. Every time you cast a creature, you seek one with a lesser mana value and put that on the board as well. It's 2 mana ramp creatures here, Lotus Cobra and Gilded Goose. Another 4 or 5 color deck here from our opponent. They're getting close to stable here, but we do have a Fire Prophecy if they can't blow up Robber of the Rich, so we can really try to make this board state a lot smaller. They do have Circuit Mender, which grabs another Mana Dork. So they are really getting there. They're also gaining 2 life off the Circuit Mender. Ooh, Goldspan Dragon off the top, but we don't have the mana for it right now. Unfortunate. So we kind of have to blow up their creatures with power here. Oh, I wish I had 1 more mana. If I had 1 more mana, I could like Zerzoth and sack Zerzoth to kill Lotus Cobra with the Yawgmoth's ability and then pass the torch. Or not pass torch, Fire Prophecy the Circuit Mender. I guess I can just pass the torch Cobra and then Fire Prophecy Circuit Mender so I can still attack both here. Yeah. Oh no, I don't have fewer cards. They don't have more cards than me, so I can't Fire Prophecy off an attack. Shoot. I did not think that through. I guess our line was to just drop Zerzoth and attack both. And then we can sack Zerzoth in response to their block to make sure whatever they block with can't kill the Robber. But Robber wouldn't pull an extra card out of their deck anyway. Alright, we'll bounce off each other. Yes, Cabaret Revels was some bad news for us. And that's really going to give them the fuel they need to dump their hand out real quick, especially with Goldspan Dragon. Yeah, I think Cabaret Rebels has got us here. Now we're having to discard to a Nicol Bolas. Guess we have to discard Sisters of the Undead. I can't afford to not have a play if I don't hit a land. So I don't think I can just discard Zerzoth. Yeah. Absolutely massive Cabaret Revels this game. And a Vraska to just blow up the Robber anyway. And again, with all the mana dorks they pulled off Cabaret Revels, plus the treasures from Goldspan Dragon, they just dumped their hands so quickly here. Robber wouldn't be drawing cards off them anyway. Do get the Goldspan Dragon mana. We only get past the torch if we damage them. Don't think it's honestly worth it. I think we shoot Vraska here. They just get to flip this Bolas next turn, don't they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from Goldspan. Yeah, we're out. It is concession time. A flipped Nicol Bolas with a board state of 4 creatures. Not going to be possible to beat. Whoa! Okay. I think our odds of winning just went up like 1%. From 1% chance to win to 2% chance to win. Still incredibly low because their board state already just beats us. They don't actually need the flipped Bolas, but flipped Bolas is just like the nail in the coffin there. I would just be like, let them kill Vraska, and the next turn they just spend the 7 to flip Bolas, blow up our gold span with Bolas, and now they have a 4 loyalty Planeswalker, and I only have a 2/4 against like 3 attackers. That's what I would have expected. That's what I was scared of. But we don't know what's in their hand, so protecting Vraska might be more powerful to them. I mean, yeah. If they just have more to dump on the board anyway, and they want to spend all their mana into dumping more on the board instead of flipping Bolas, then yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that explains the line. We're very out of it. 3-3 it is. Not a fantastic run, but not a terrible run. And I'm happy to go a little better than I did the first time with a Rakdos aggro deck. I think this deck was pretty fun. I was going to say I probably should be playing 18 lands, but then again, I would have cut Combustible Gearhulk, and we didn't draw Combustible Gearhulk a single time, so we wouldn't have drawn the 18th land a single time anyway. But yeah, I think that was one of our biggest issues, was even though I don't have a lot of 5 and 6 mana cards, if I miss my 4th land drop, that's huge. And then when I do have one of my 5 drops, they're really powerful, like Goldspan Dragon Terror of the Peaks. So missing out on playing a turn 5 Goldspan Dragon is really painful as well. So I probably should have been playing a little more lands instead of the, we're doing 17 right now. Arena's going to say it's 16, but Shatterskull Smashing, every time we drew that, we played it as a land. Shatterskull Smashing is our 17th land with the backup plan of if we're flooded out, playing it as a sorcery. So we're basically the 17 land deck. I should have just went for the 18 there. I think probably my biggest takeaway from it, because that was one of our biggest ways we were losing. Our very first round against that green-blue deck, we lost because we were a little too slow. The match where we got Torrential Gearhulk, Sublime Epiphany, maybe if we were also a little quicker there, we could have won that one. That one probably less likely, but the one against the Simic deck, we got them down to like 3 life. We could have won that game if we were a little faster, hit a little more land drops early. Yeah, I think that's my biggest takeaway here. Even though we're pretty aggressive, we could use a high land count in this deck. When it comes to over and underperformers, Zerzoth was definitely an underperformer because every time in hand I just had better cards to play and never wanted to drop it down. Obnixilis performed about as well as I thought it would. It was pretty sweet in that game 1 against the green-blue deck. Even though we lost that game, it did a lot of work. I mean, a big reason we lost that game was their ability to Sublime Epiphany us, that they got to bounce the Obnixilis token, and because it's a token, it's just gone forever. That was really rough. We never got to play a lot of our cards. We never drew Siege Gang, Nightmare Shepherd, Ravenous Chupacabra. A lot of cards we didn't actually get to play around with, so I don't know about them. But most everything we played with played pretty well. I was pretty happy with it. Especially Olivia Crimson Bride, probably the biggest overperformer here. That was pretty much any time we cast it, we get there on turn 6. That just puts a lot of power on the board. Hasting in for a bunch of extra damage out of nowhere, that does really close out games. So I actually like that card a lot better than I thought I would. And yeah, it's not really the kind of card you need graveyard synergies for. It's just like if you're an aggressive strategy, they already have to blow up your creatures to survive. So whatever creatures they've blown up, bring one back on the board out of nowhere, tapped and attacking alongside a 3/4 flying haste. That can often close out a game. So definitely much higher on the Olivia Crimson Bride than I was before. I think that card's actually pretty sweet. So yeah, pretty solid run overall here. I'll take it. A 3-3 run. Average win rate this time around, a 50-50. Check out our rewards, but that is going to end today's video. As always, if you enjoy these videos and you'd like to see some more, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm to know to send you some more of these videos in your recommended feed. And once again, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.